The fallout from Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's prisoner trade intensifies as new details are emerging about the circumstances surrounding the night he vanished. 6 of Bergdahl's fellow platoon members who served with him in Afghanistan expressed anger, sadness, and outrage over what they said was Bergdahl's willful desertion 5 years ago. Here they are in a revealing Kelly File exclusive.
Raise your hand if you think he deserted. Wow.
We knew that he had deserted. We knew that he was trying to find the Taliban. When I saw him, I said, wow, he looks pretty good. We looked a lot worse than that when we were out there looking for him.
I would have done everything I had to do, cursing them, trying to escape, swinging on them, trying to steal a gun, shoot them. I'm not going to be a propaganda piece so my family can see me on the internet.
Whatever his agenda was in trying to connect with the Taliban, explain to me how that's honorable. I mean, that's a
They seem to be trying to predate it.
I mean, that's spitting in the face to everyone who deployed, came back.
We're not there because it's easy. We're there to do a hard job, and that's what you signed up to do.
We all signed up by ourselves. We volunteered. And a draft didn't come through, nothing like that.
He doesn't seem like a captive. He seems like someone who is potentially enjoying himself.
What did you think when you saw the president with his parents in the Rose Garden?
Hard to watch that. It was hard. I had to leave the room.
Raise your hand if you would like to see him court-martialed and see a trial. Wow.
All right, well, there you have it. So that was a Kelly File exclusive last night on the Fox News channel. But there are some in politics and in the administration that would call these men liars, would say that they have a loose relationship with the truth. Big problem here because they're coming forward. They haven't been able to be silenced, Derek. They're there to tell the story about what happened and what they know about the man that they served with.
Last night, that hour was some of the best TV I've seen in a long time. Here are 6 heroes who served alongside. One of them was a platoon leader of Bergdahl who said unequivocally, yeah, get him back, but then try him. Find out exactly what went on. Now, since that interview, today, some of the news pieces that have come around today, that one of the Taliban 5 or the Obama 5, whatever you want to call them, the people we traded for Bergdahl, has said he will fight against Americans again. He's not done in the fight in the jihad against America. That's one thing. Another piece of information that came out now. Unnamed sources, granted, so take it with a grain of salt. High-level Obama advisors had said to President Obama, had advised him against making this trade because it would be, quote, like sending 5 4-star generals back. That's what it was like. That's what the equivalent would have been. So bottom line is there are a lot of questions surrounding what went on. I think everyone agrees get the guy back. Just make sure you find out what's going on. Get that information from them.
Yeah, justice delayed should not be justice denied here. But, Dana, let's talk me through the optics, the communication here. Because do you think that the White House anticipated that you would have soldiers coming forward like this to tell the story and speak openly and frequently about what happened back then?
It is hard to imagine that they would not, but it appears that they did not. Because I think one of the things they could have done to mitigate this is to have reached out to those families at the same time. Or to these soldiers, and to be able to say, look, he's going to be coming back. The reason I think that all of them want to come out and speak publicly is that the president made a decision to try to paint a narrative of Bergdahl as a hero, and that period, end of sentence. No answering of the questions that surrounded his disappearance, nor about the rescue. Yesterday, James Clapper is reported to have said in a hearing, when asked about the health of Bergdahl and the urgency to bring him back, he said the intel would not support that. So it's hard for me to imagine that the White House didn't anticipate a lot of this. I think they could have had a much different week if they had made a decision instead of doing a Rose Garden ceremony to do a White House photo release of the president contacting the family, and Susan Rice, instead of going on the Sunday show to say unequivocally what she said, to say, we're going to get all of the answers. This was a tough deal for America to have to swallow. We think it was the right thing to do. We understand people will disagree with it, but we think it's the best thing for America. Then they wouldn't have had the week that they've had.
Yes, it's been unnecessarily frenetic for them. You have, Susan Rice saying things such as this man served with honor and distinction, and so many facts and evidence coming out to fly in the face of that. It's a real credibility problem for this administration. Greg?
I think you guys are blowing this way out of proportion. It's disgusting. These guys, the conditions for the release was a 1-year travel ban. And also they're going to make an annual Muslim pilgrimage. They're only going to be praying. I don't know what you're talking about. I hear that they might open a goat-only Arby's, which I think would be wonderful. But no, we all know.
Special sauce?
Yes.
Terrible.
You don't want to know. Killing Americans is their skill set. We just handed over 5 grenades for a squirt gun. It's pretty bad. I have an idea, though. The Taliban 5, those guys, they should get a TV show in Afghanistan, a round table where they discuss the issues of the day, like head lice, bestiality, gang rape, beheading. They could have a goat named Casper. What do you think about that? Huh? But, yeah, this is crazy.
The Taliban's goat. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm keeping an open mind about this.
Should each one of them host a separate segment?
Everyone gets, yes, and you have one more beheading at the end of every show.
Oh, my gosh.
Do they have any...
Bob, that wouldn't go well for you in our group.
Yes.
Apologize.
Oh, my goodness.
Somebody on the show gets beheaded?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One more beheading.
Interesting. Job casualty. Bob?
Yeah, if I could comment on just a few of these things. First of all, I don't know of anybody who could call these people liars, like you suggested at the beginning. I really don't. I mean,
Greg,
I don't.
you can respond.
Except for Greg, but what does that matter? I mean, talk about an authoritative source, but it's.
How about the New York Times, Bob? If you're going to say that, the New York Times claimed that it's these guys' fault. It's the troops' fault.
Right, and we have that actually.
So I guess, is that an okay source?
I want to bring that in, and then Bob, I want to get you to respond.
Hold
on one second.
Can I say something?
Well, you came after me, Bob.
By the way, it wasn't just...
Hold on. Eric, give me a second here. Put up the New York Times editorial, because we're going to see if this is going to help Bob. I think it's not. It's not going so far, so well for him at 6 minutes in. The rush to demonize Sergeant Bergdahl. If anything, the report suggests that the Army unit's lack of security and discipline was as much to blame for the disappearance. This is what we're referring to.
Well, okay, you can take that as meaning that their responsibility. But let me put it this way. This guy got away twice. He wandered away from his base. So he'd had a history of doing this, right? I'm sure that was in the official files of the military or secret files of the military. When you listen to these guys talk last night, and I have no reason to doubt their sincerity, they gave a definitive statement. He was a deserter. The platoon leader said he was a deserter. When we started this discussion several days ago, it was centered around people being killed going after him, if you remember. The number went from 6 to 9 to 14 to something. That number now is backing way, way off because, and fortunately I think the right thing to do, is that there is not much indication that people died directly as a result of trying to find him because he wasn't worth losing their lives finding if this, in fact, is what this guy's about. How in the world the Obama administration could have done that knowing what the military had to know, how they possibly could have had a Rose Garden ceremony is so incomprehensible to me.
But can I this thing, the New York Times, it's kind of infuriating. They're like a pig looking for truffles, except that truffle is any defense of any scandal that involves Obama. The paper, I mean, talking about losing troops, the paper loses more employees than the Sherpa industry, and it reflects a media cocoon that creates Obama's vulnerability. This is the reason why
he has the Rose Garden.
Yeah, he has the Rose Garden thing because nobody tells him his mistakes. You become, without criticism by your friends, you become weak, clueless, and incompetent, which are the only areas Obama's really grown in.
Right.
Don't you think that somebody would
Eric,
have
and you have a
known about
response to
this?
Bob.
I mean, don't you think
I think so.
No.
Bowling.
No.
Or they did and they don't care.
Right, they didn't care. These are the words of Susan Rice the week before this story broke, before the trade was done. She said, we need to put some points on the board. I'm not making this up. Yep. This is her quote. We need to put points on the board. So what happens within 4 days of that quote? They take a victory lap over this trade,
right.
And they're thinking they're putting points on the board, Bob, and what they're doing is they're throwing air balls up, and everyone's saying, are you kidding me? Points. You're putting points on the board against it on the other team, on the visitors' team.
Yeah, but you just said everybody says, are you kidding me? You're right. Everybody is saying that. So how a collection of people at the White House...
Absolutely.
They don't get it.
The idea that they don't think that this thing was going to be exposed for what this guy's background was
Bob,
is
it was in the Rolling Stone magazine
I understand
in 2012.
That makes it even more incomprehensible.
What Bob is trying to say is he's so surprised that such a competent White House would make such a mistake like this.
It's really shocking.
No, it adds their incompetence. This is the problem. There's been one thing after another. But this one, haven't served in one that everybody can see.
There's information that we don't know, and they're holding it right now.
I'm suggesting that somehow, some way, they got together, they smoked a bunch of dope, and convinced each other that they were going to actually get something positive out of this. How could you possibly make that determination?
And I think it goes all the way to the top, because if you're staff and you go in and you know that the military intel and all the deputy and principals processes that it goes through up until it gets to the president for the final thing. The final decision had to be from President Obama, not just on the decision to do the rescue, but to also do the Rose Garden ceremony.
He decides.
So can you imagine going into the Oval Office and saying, Mr. President, we've got a great idea. We have no answers to anything, but we'd like you to go out and speak definitively with Bergdahl's father, and he's going to speak Pashto to his son. From the Rose Garden, and then you can go to Europe and have a great trip, and we will have put points on the board.
Yeah,
and the President of the United States doesn't say, are you sure that's a good idea?
No, but they would have said, we have answers, Mr. President, to some things here we already know. This guy has deserted his base twice before. There is every indication that his platoon leader thinks he's a deserter. And if Obama's told that...
No, that's what I mean. I think you and I are agreeing.
Yeah, but the thing is, maybe those things aren't a big deal. Yeah. Those things aren't a big deal to a certain mindset that sees desertion as like calling in sick for work.
That's it. It doesn't have the same significance. I don't think they properly vetted this situation. I think he was poorly advised, but ultimately it's on his call. I think they were worried about the VA. Well, now they have this. Great job. And unfortunately, not only was this just sloppy, it was dangerous and reckless to the rest of Americans. And then there's this. Susan Rice, the gift that keeps on giving. Roll it.
I realize there's been a lot of discussion and controversy around this, but what I was referring to is the fact that this was a young man who volunteered to serve his country in uniform at a time of war. That is itself a very honorable thing. But honor and distinction. Jim, really, I mean, this is a young man whose circumstances we are still going to learn about. He is, as all Americans, innocent until proven guilty. And the military has committed to review the circumstances of his capture. If there is a consequence that results from that, that will be delivered.
Wow, Greg.
I like how she gets angry that Jim is like saying, I'm just repeating what you said. Really? Really, Jim? By the way, based on her standard of honor and distinction, you could say the same thing for Chelsea Manning and Benedict Arnold.
That's just on that standard.
Yeah, on that standard.
Dana.
Well, I think that it's interesting that she seems to never bear any responsibility for something that she said, and she's asking for patience after she was the one who said what she said. It would have been very easy for her to have added a little bit of a qualification at the beginning of her sentence last Sunday that would have avoided their whole problem. But I think that they decided they want to have a narrative of a hero. They went forward with it, and now they're having to deal with it.
Well, and Eric, the heroes were the guys that were on the Kelly file last night, okay? Because they brought up a great point. Any honorable soldier knows if you get taken, you're going to put everyone else, all the troops at risk. They're going to torture you. What do? Any good soldier would pull out his K-bar and not be taken alive, and everybody knows that. That's how they work.
But would you not think that they would say, that because they knew he was a deserter, right, and the military knew he was a deserter, it's not worth us sending anybody out to get him?
No, that's the point, is that they said they would go and die for him
because you
regardless.
think that they're stupid enough to believe they're going to get away with this.
Do you have another explanation?
I have. That's right. Why I don't have all the evidence.
So therefore, the conclusion is they are that freaking stupid. There's no other explanation.
And you don't have one. That the administration was high on dope.
Nobody,
that was your explanation.
yes, but nobody can get elected president of the United States twice with some decent people and be that dumb.
Well, you have a willing media, a compliant media.
But they're not that compliant. I mean, you can't.
Are you
Maybe
kidding?
they need to bring back those campaign people into the White House.
The liberal on the fire.
It's a liberal intervention. All right, we're trying to help you see the light. This is an incompetent administration.
Right. I want to guess. I guess you need to see all the facts before I decide to shoot myself.
That's true.
Oh my God!
That's a good point. I don't want you to shoot yourself.
And people, there you have it. Consensus has been reached. This is a Fox News alert on a Friday.